every service in the city is going to be impacted by the asylum seeker crisis.
Discover how immigrants are reshaping America's housing landscape and why NYC might owe someone some toilet paper.
It is really serious because, as you know,
ongoing migrant crisis here in New York. The city and state continue to spar, and both sides faced off in court yesterday.
The rift between the two typically tight political allies is a significant revelation.
they think that the mayor has twofold purpose in doing
Right.
Stick until the end of the video just to know how much advancements are going on in housing and how immigrants are the Batman in disguise.
I'm vengeance.
The Immigrant Impact, a boost to the U.S. housing market. Have you ever considered the impact of immigrants on the U.S. housing market? A recent study by the America's Society Council of the Americas and the Partnership for a New American Economy has some surprising findings. Out of the 40 million immigrants living in the U.S., they've contributed a whopping $3.7 trillion to housing wealth. This isn't just about big numbers. Their presence has been a saving grace for communities where house prices were dropping or at risk of falling.
Holy shit!
We all know that many countries, including the US, face challenges with an aging population. With thousands of baby boomers retiring every day, there's a growing gap in the workforce. Thankfully, immigrants, mostly being of working age, step in to fill this void. But back to housing. Not many have delved deep into understanding how immigrants influence this sector, and the neighborhoods that may have been overlooked or less attractive suddenly get a new lease on life, all thanks to the immigrant families moving in, buying homes, and contributing to the community. It's like a ripple effect. When they invest in a house, the entire area benefits. Immigrants tend to gravitate towards these lesser-known peripheries. By doing so, they've positively impacted places like San Francisco's East Bay, as well as parts of New York, like the Bronx and Queens. In fact, due to this trend, cities like Newark, New Jersey have seen population declines reverse. Over in metropolitan Atlanta, suburban Gwinnett County stands out as a location significantly enhanced by immigrant activity. Statistics for perspective. As per a 2020 study by the National Association of Home Builders, or the NAHB, immigrants in the U.S. were projected to drive the demand for over 1.2 million housing units between 2020 and 2030. In cities like Los Angeles, a 2021 report indicated that areas with higher concentrations of recent immigrants experienced a noticeable rise in home ownership rates. The Blame Game, Migrants, Housing, and Immigration, a surprising love story. Let's serve you some piping hot real estate tea on how our immigrant friends are shaking things up in the housing market. 1. Houston episode of Immigrants. Now, the award for the most surprisingly affected by immigration goes to Harris County, Texas. Yep, that's Houston for you non-Texans. In just a decade, immigrants have upped the value of an average home there by over $25,000. And Harris is strutting its stuff alongside 11 other counties, mostly Sunbelt darlings, where immigration's added more than $10,000 to housing values in the past decade. Number 2, the neighborhood glow up. Remember those meh neighborhoods no one was really eyeing? Immigrants see their hidden charm. They move in, and these areas start shining again, making them attractive spots for fellow middle and working class Americans. It's like seeing that overlooked book becoming a bestseller. Number 3, sunny delights and rusty charms. Immigration shows its magic, especially in two places: the Sunbelt cities, which are basically the affordable sun-kissed darlings everyone loves, and the Rust Belt cities that need some TLC. Here, immigrants act like a superhero shield, preventing house values from sinking any further. Let's talk drama. Chicago and its surroundings have lost about 900,000 US-born souls since 1970. Heartbreak, right? But wait, enter our protagonists, nearly 600,000 immigrants. They swirled into the scene, saving the day and most likely stopping even more folks from packing their bags. And hey, they didn't just stop at Chicago. They jazzed up the neighboring region around Gary, Indiana, hiking up home values by a cool $1,500 on average. And before anyone says it, no, immigrants aren't causing that pesky affordability crisis in those posh, expensive cities. They're not the ones driving prices sky high in Beverly Hills, if you catch my drift. Number 4. Rural revival plot twist. Cue the touching comeback story set in rural North Carolina. Once upon a time in Duplin County, there was just one immigrant for every 1,000 residents. But after a drop in the 80s, a whopping 6,500 immigrants settled in, flipping the script. They reversed the decline, and now every 1 in 8 residents there hail from abroad. This juicy bit is just the tip of the iceberg. PNAE and ASCOA are releasing more deets in a report this summer. And here's a quick shout out to Rockefeller Brothers Fund and the Partnership for a New American Economy Research Fund for making the spicy research happen. A decade of changes. The U.S. housing crisis has intensified in the past decade, with demand vastly outstripping supply, leading to soaring prices, which are making people go. While political debates occasionally generalize the role of immigrants, experts have identified the nuanced contributions of this demographic in shaping and, in some instances, alleviating housing challenges. 1. Urban attraction. Cities like San Francisco, Seattle, and New York experienced exponential job growth primarily in the tech sector, pulling more residents towards metropolitan hubs. 2. Supply limitations. Zoning laws, high construction costs, and local opposition often hamper the construction of new homes, creating a supply-demand imbalance. 3. Foreign investments. Particularly in major cities, real estate became a magnet for foreign investors, sometimes driving up prices. Revitalization of neglected areas. Historically, immigrants have settled in less developed or declining urban zones. Their presence often triggers a local economic boost. For instance, parts of Philadelphia and Detroit have witnessed revival owing to immigrant populations. Different living patterns. Immigrant families often employ diverse housing approaches such as multi-generational living or shared housing. Such practices can reduce the per capita demand on housing. Supporting construction. The housing demand generated by immigrants not only reshapes existing neighborhoods, but can stimulate the housing construction sector. In 2018, the Urban Land Institute highlighted that immigrants are vital for the growth of the housing market. Expert insights. Dr. Albert Saiz from MIT back in 2019 report highlighted that immigrants can often rejuvenate declining cities, bolstering housing demand in places that would otherwise experience population decline. He undermined how immigrants play a crucial role in addressing housing crises in declining cities. These individuals invigorate cities experiencing population decline by bolstering housing demand. Their presence stabilizes or even increases property values in areas which would otherwise see a downturn. By filling vacant homes and revitalizing neighborhoods, immigrants not only prevent the decay of infrastructure, but also stimulate investment in urban renewal and development. Their active participation in the housing market brings life back to underutilized districts and combats the broader challenges of urban decay. Jennifer Hunt, a professor at Rutgers, pointed out in 2020 that while immigrants increase housing demand, they also significantly contribute to housing supply, especially as workers in the construction sector. Manuel Pastor, a professor at USC in 2021, emphasized the role of immigrants in the resilience of urban economies. Their entrepreneurial spirit often leads to the establishment of businesses, further fueling demand for local housing. The double-edged sword. But that's not a whole good story. The problem is not the cities which do not have many inhabitants. They are the ones that already have competition in the housing market. It is strongly agreed that immigrants add to housing demand, but there is a dark side to this which can further strain already tight markets, potentially leading to price escalations. Immigrant-led revitalization can eventually attract wealthier residents, driving up property values and potentially displacing initial residents. Sometimes, blame is incorrectly placed on immigrants for housing shortages or price rises, leading to unwarranted social tensions. Here's one of the recent case studies from New York where it has gone spiraling downhill. Case study, housing crisis, New York. Well, while we praise migrants as heroes, there are certainly a lot of differences, especially when it comes to NYC. NYC's got a major where do we put everyone problem. Since the Trump-era Title 42 policy ended, we've gone from a lot of migrants to a whoa, that's a lot of migrants, like 700 daily. Imagine New York as that friend who keeps borrowing your clothes but never returns them. Well, New York has borrowed a bunch of homes, and now over 80,000 people are going, where do I sleep at night? Renters aren't having it easy either. Many are teetering on the edge. Politicians' reaction. Over in Albany, the politicians who you'd hope would whip out some game-changing legislation seem to be treating the situation like it's a hot potato. Nobody wants to hold on to it for too long. As of now, they're likely to wrap up their sessions this month without any big moves on the housing front. The mayor's take. Now, enter Mayor Eric Adams. With record numbers of people lacking a roof over their heads, he's like, maybe it's time to rethink some stuff. Specifically, he's eyeing the city's long-standing promise, a unique 42-year-old mandate that says anyone in NYC who asks for shelter gets it, a promise not many cities can boast of. Mayor Adams and his crew have thrown out all sorts of wild ideas: hotels, parking lots, tents, and even school gyms. Parents, activists, and just about every New Yorker went, nope. Out of the whopping 67,000 migrants since this whole thing started, the city's looking after 41,500 of them, with a hefty 4,300 popping in just last week. A little history lesson. This mandate wasn't born from thin air. Way back in 1979, due to a court ruling, Callahan versus Carey, sounds fancy, right? The mandate's name honors Mr. Robert Callahan, who along with others, wasn't too pleased when they were denied shelter. Tragically, Mr. Callahan faced a cold end on a city street, but in his memory, by 1981, NYC was like, all right, let's at least guarantee some basics. And so, they pledged to offer those in need the essentials: a decent bed, trusty toilet paper, and a bar of soap. The housing crisis pickle in a nutshell. While the situation is serious and finding solutions isn't easy, and remember, always hold on to your toilet paper. You never know its worth until it's gone.